Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me today because we are diving into a topic that I think pretty much all of us can relate to right now. I want you to think about that grand utopian promise of artificial intelligence that we've all been sold lately. It was supposed to be the ultimate assistant, right? A magical tool designed strictly to save us time, conserve our precious mental energy, and make our daily workflows completely frictionless. But as I'm sure many of us are starting to realize, that promise comes with a pretty massive catch.
So let's really dive into this. We all went in with this very clear expectation. You ask a question, and boom, you get one clear, perfect solution. But what is the actual reality of using these tools? What we actually get is an endless stream of alternatives, multiple rewrites, and just a total barrage of varying recommendations. Instead of just giving us the answer and saving us time, the technology actually forces our brains to constantly evaluate, compare, and ultimately decide among a massive sea of outputs. And honestly, the chaos of that reality is exactly what we're going to unpack today.
Which brings us to a really central, fascinating question. What actually happens when a tool that is quite literally designed to reduce our effort begins creating a completely different kind of exhaustion? Let me tell you, if you've been feeling this strange sense of hidden fatigue after using these tools, even when they are technically, doing the work for you, you are absolutely not alone, and it is definitely not just in your head. There is a very real mechanism driving this modern fatigue.
Section 1. The problem. Cognitive saturation.
Okay, let's put a name to exactly what we're facing here. We call it AI-related cognitive saturation. Basically, this is the intense mental overload that develops when we are just constantly generating, comparing, and evaluating AI answers. Sure, the AI might be generating the actual words or writing the code, but your brain? Your brain still has to carry the heavy burden of deciding which response is correct, which one is actually useful, or which one is even trustworthy. You really haven't eliminated the work at all. You've just shifted it. You've moved from the work of creation to the endless work of constant evaluation.
And this saturation doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It ties directly into a much broader issue known as technostress. This is that underlying tension created by constantly adapting to rapidly changing tech, always being available, and feeling this relentless pressure to just work faster. When your mind repeatedly experiences this kind of uncertainty and overload, your body's stress response can actually kick into gear. Now, to be super accurate here, it would be totally incorrect to claim that AI just automatically causes a universal cortisol spike in every single person who logs on. But cortisol levels absolutely can change during stressful technology use.
So how does that stress actually show up for us? A lot of folks describe the aftermath of all this AI saturation as brain fog. Having a really hard time concentrating, remembering information, or just thinking clearly. Now, brain fog isn't a specific medical diagnosis, and AI certainly isn't proven to be the single cause of it. But look at the main contributors here. Frequent task switching, massive information overload, poor sleep, and prolonged stress. Using AI constantly feeds directly into this exact ecosystem, making it incredibly difficult for us to just sit down and concentrate.
Section 2. The agitation. Psychological traps.
It all kicks off with something called cognitive offloading. This happens when we transfer our remembering, analyzing, and problem-solving tasks right over to the AI. Now, don't get me wrong, offloading is incredibly useful. We all do it. But depending on it for absolutely everything, well, that is exactly where the trap lies. If we offload every single mental task, we significantly reduce how often we actually practice these vital cognitive skills ourselves.
And that heavy reliance leads us straight into what we call the convenience trap. This is when we just automatically turn to an AI simply because, it's quicker than working through a problem on our own. It fundamentally encourages our brains to take mental shortcuts. We start accepting an instant answer right away instead of doing the much harder but rewarding work of researching, reflecting, or really thinking critically about the issue at hand.
So the crucial point here is what happens when we take way too many of those shortcuts. We develop something called automation bias. This is basically blind trust. We accept an AI answer without any verification at all, just because the output sounds so confident and so authoritative. It creates this really dangerous illusion of understanding. We read a highly polished explanation and suddenly we feel super knowledgeable, even if, when pressed, we couldn't actually explain the idea ourselves.
And this behavior builds into an incredibly powerful reward loop. Let's break it down. Step 1, you get a really useful answer. Step 2, that utility encourages you to return more frequently, sometimes even using it for highly personal or important life decisions. Step 3, Because the AI is designed to mirror your language and your viewpoints, you receive this constant personalized validation. And finally, step 4. Over time, this forms a complete echo chamber. Instead of challenging your thoughts, the tool just constantly strengthens your existing beliefs.
And for a lot of people, that echo chamber becomes a sort of safe space, which ultimately leads to fear-driven dependence. This is so relatable. It happens when we start using AI simply to avoid uncertainty, to avoid making a mistake, or just to avoid the general discomfort of making independent decisions. We literally use the machine as a shield to protect ourselves from the anxiety of being wrong.
But here's the irony. Trying to avoid that uncertainty just breeds a whole new kind of chaos. We call it prompt perfectionism. You ask the AI a question because you want to avoid uncertainty, but then it gives you varied answers. So what do? You repeatedly rewrite your prompts. You compare the new outputs. You tweak it again. You are just endlessly searching for this imaginary, perfect answer, spinning your wheels in an exhausting cycle that entirely defeats the original purpose of saving time.
So all of these chaotic behaviors, the offloading, the bias, the perfectionism, they all culminate right here. We get hit with decision fatigue on one side and creative erosion on the other. Think about it. After you evaluate way too many generated options, making even a simple choice starts to feel like a massive burden. And worse, your creativity becomes totally passive. Ideas are just handed to you on a silver platter before your own imagination even has the time to struggle, experiment, and naturally develop. That right there is the true hidden exhaustion of AI.
Okay, let's take a collective deep breath here. Section 3, the solution, reclaiming your mind.
Here is the absolute core of what we're talking about today. The real problem is not AI itself. Not at all. The problem is our unconscious and unlimited dependence on it. AI is an incredibly powerful piece of technology, but it absolutely works best as a thinking partner, not as a replacement for human thought. If we can just shift our mindset to see it as a collaborator rather than a substitute, well, everything changes.
So how do we actually do that practically? Let's go over some clear rules of engagement to establish boundaries and prevent that burnout. First off, before you even open an AI tool, try forming your own first answer. Just anchor yourself. Then, use the AI to question, improve, or test that idea. Always verify important information to fight off that automation bias. Limit your unnecessary comparisons. Seriously, you don't need to rewrite that prompt 20 times. And finally, just allow some problems to remain uncertain. You really don't need a machine to solve every single ambiguity in your life.
I want to leave you with a really powerful question to chew on long after this explainer wraps up. The future is arriving incredibly fast. So will we end up thinking less just because machines can think faster? Or will we actively choose to use these amazing machines while fiercely protecting the mental abilities that make us independent, creative, and fully capable of our own judgment? The choice is entirely ours to make. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this today. Keep thinking critically, and I'll catch you in the next